TikTok. It's time to rock. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 5150 show. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the pillars of this community, the Rock Professor and Brad.
Morning, all.
Afternoon, morning, wherever you are.
Did you ever think that you'd become a pillar of a community, Brad and Simon? Was that ever something that you set out to achieve in your lives?
No, I didn't think so, Andrew. But I'm glad that you brought it up, and I'm glad that we are pillars of the community. At least this community.
Greg
Well, you know
says,
what?
Kid Alex, the Trinity.
I'll take that. What you can do, though, you can put this down in your CVs, gentlemen, later on. You know, when they put their university doctorate in geography, this is the Rock Professor, and also a pillar in my community. Oh, what community is this? YouTube community.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with the YouTube community.
Oh my gosh!
Excellent place.
Thank you guys for being here. This is going to be a great show. We're looking forward to this. It's going to be interesting. We've got 14 songs to go through. Bit of a chat. Brad, you've got some important news to give to us, haven't you? Before we get into some more chit chat, I suppose it's really important.
Probably the most important thing we can mention is it's Mother's Day, and we're going to love every mother out there. And happy Mother's Day to all the wonderful mothers, including my mum, Ellen Toll, who's in the chat here, and he supports us every week. So happy Mother's Day, Mum, and to all the mothers and to all the wonderful ladies that are out there that do wonderful jobs looking after children, whether it's their own or not. Happy Mother's Day.
Fantastic, bro. Fantastic. So, like I say, ladies and gentlemen, it's a big world, and Mother's Day and Father's Day are always on different dates. But we always celebrate Mother's Day on the channel. But here in Australia and New Zealand, it is Mother's Day. Let us know if it is Mother's Day where you are in the world. And if you're watching on a replay, let us know if it is or isn't Mother's Day. I'd be interested to see what that situation is.
Oh, and I also wanted to mention second most important thing other than Mother's Day is thanks to Chris Gill yesterday for joining us. Andrew, I had a wonderful show yesterday. I thought it was a wonderful show. And Chris is just a historian and a very important man when it comes to all this music that we're deep diving into. And what would we do without Chris coming on our channel? He's a wonderful, wonderful man and full of information and knowledge. I could sit and listen to him for hours. So, Andrew, I don't know how you felt about the show yesterday, but I felt like it went really well. And Chris is just an amazing human, amazing man.
Yeah, great guy. It was a great show. He's been on our channel, ladies and gentlemen, about 4 times, and it was really nice, Simon, to nail him down and talk Clapton because he's been on talking Van Halen, and we've always had these little slight detours to Clapton. But he's going to come back. He's going to come back. He promised us that he'll come back and do a part 2 on Clapton because we never spoke about, a lot of other notes that he took. And he's got some projects that Brad and I are sworn to secrecy that we can't let out. But all we can say is just keep your fingers crossed that what he and Brad are working on manages to go through to fruition, Brad and Simon.
Oh, yeah.
Look,
it'll all tie in with this channel very, very closely. If the information comes out, you'll understand what we're talking about. So looking forward to that one.
Yeah, it was a great show. I really enjoyed it. I watched it yesterday, having done the shopping and all sorts of other things. But it was great. It was really good.
Thanks,
Chris is a riveting, interviewee and stuff, and there's so much information at his fingertips and so much. And you guys did a fantastic job of letting him get on with it. Well done.
Thank you. That's what Simon. It's a credit to the three of us on this channel. I think we've all learned when it comes to having someone important on the channel to give them the space and give them the opportunity to talk and let them talk about what they want to talk about and not us. I know we threw questions in there, but they were like bait for us to,
no, absolutely, yeah. No, that's it. No, I think that your understanding of that is brilliant, and it makes for really good viewing and stuff, because you ask a question, then you let them get on with it, and Chris has lots to get on with. It's fantastic,
He's a historian and he's got a lot to talk about. So very exciting to talk to someone like that. Very good.
It's probably better not to have me on, because I interrupt all the time.
No, not necessarily.
Well, he does watch our show, and he did make a comment, during the time in the green room at the start of the show to say hi to the Rock Professors. So that was, that was a nice, kind thing for him to do. So, we're all different branches here on the channel, and the fact that he can come on, Simon and Brad, and as you say, pass on his experience and expertise to us, and just tell us a few other little things behind the scenes as well is always a privilege.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It's fantastic.
And Simon, you had a gig on.
I had a gig last night. Yes. Yep. We were playing at with the bass player in our band, Dave. He used to play rugby for this team, so we quite often do dues for them. They had their end of year sort of dinner dance, prize giving and all of that, and then we gave them hell for an hour and a half. That's great, really good. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, we really enjoyed ourselves. That was fantastic. I think Hugh called on in the chat. I think he had a gig last night as well. You've had 4 hours sleep like me, Hugh. I should be propping my eyelids open with forks like about 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yes, not quite the flying out of state and all that stuff that Brad does, but it's get in the car and drive there with your gear. No, it was great. It was great fun. I normally put up a picture on the thing. Oh, Hugh played a whiskey distillery last night and stayed sober. Congratulations, Hugh. That's
good boy.
Brilliant.
Good boy.
Not even a sniff, Hugh. Not even a. No, we have to drive and stuff, don't we? Greg Roberts Tune says, "I'm a bit posher than them." No, Greg, no, I'm not. I don't know where you got this idea from.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
It's great
Rock
fun.
Professor, we've got the minimum number of 10 people watching us, so I suppose it's probably a good opportunity for you to do a shout out. And Brad, how about you do the end shout out tonight because it's Mother's Day? What do you reckon?
I'll do the end one because
all right.
it's, I like I'm the backdoor man. I go around the end.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely. You have to go at the end.
Let's move on from that comment. You could take that too many different ways.
Stop that now. So before I do a shout out to the people in the chat, shout out to Steve Winwood, who was 75 the day before yesterday, I think. So in the last couple of days. So happy birthday to Steve Winwood. The great Steve Winwood. Only 75. Blimey. He's doing well. So, and as he's apropos the album we're doing this week, he's all over it. So fantastic to wish him a happy birthday.
Yes.
I hope he had a good one. And he'll never know.
Looks like you can't see that one eye there in that photo. He's like hair covering one eye.
So we'll say good morning to Derek Clapton, who's watching. I think he's got coffee. So I hope, Derek, you got your coffee. Ellen, of course, good morning, Ellen. Happy Mother's Day. Hugh Caldwell, morning, Hugh. Hope your gig went well. I'm sure it did. In a distillery, that's excellent. Greg Roberts Tune, morning, Greg. Hope you're good. John ZD 351, morning, John. Hope you're good as well. Settling into your new place. We've still got boxes lurking about, or have you managed to get it all unpacked? I hope so. Jonas Halber, good morning, Jonas. Hope you're good too. It's what else? I think that's everybody who's made a comment. I hope I didn't miss anybody. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. It's great to see you. Let's get on with the show.
Yeah.
That's Eric. Derek is Eric.
Derek is Eric.
Tunes.
Who is Derek Clapton? Oh, nobody knows, you see.
Gosh, he had me in fits of laughter. I was going through the comments and the Stones video that we did. Some girls. Derek puts his usual comment on anything Stones. Cream.
Was it great?
It's an easy solution for him. The Beatles versus Stones debate. Cream.
Yeah. The Beatles Stones cream. Yes, that's just cheating. That's
that's Derek.
It is a good answer, Derek. It is the answer. Absolutely, it is.
I've actually pinched that a couple of times when we've had conversations in normal life with other people about the comparison between the two bands, and got a few laughs. Yeah, it's always a good one to pull out. Gentlemen, we'll kick off the intro, shall we? So as you guys know, we're picking the Rainbow concert that Clapton did back in '73. I've got a couple of pics of the venue too that we'll throw up. I thought it was an interesting venue. I hadn't seen anything about the venue ever in my life, so I was quite intrigued.
It's a famous London venue. It was. I've been there a few times, but it was absolutely. Playing the Rainbow was definitely the thing to be doing. It's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. So I've got a couple of pics there, ladies and gentlemen, to show on during halftime to keep you guys interested and informed. I think what we should do when we do live albums again, we might try and get some venue pics, Brad and Simon, just to sort of add to the atmosphere that we're trying to create. So that's something we should do. But yeah, as the rock professor said, when I did some research on the Rainbow Theatre, wow, everybody who was anybody in the 70s, Brad, played there. Bowie, Bob Marley, Miles Davis.
Well, famously, Bob Marley at the Rainbow is a fantastic live record. I'm sure everyone knows that.
The Beatles, the Rolling Stones in the 60s. It's just an endless. Now, okay, while we're talking about it, I'm going to show you something. What's really interesting is that, make sure I get the right pick here. So we don't call him God, but Eric Clapton's referred to as God. So what's really interesting about the Rainbow Theatre now is that the Rainbow Theatre now is a church for the Worldwide Church of God. And if you notice there on the billboard outside the Rainbow Theatre, it's called God is Calling. So I thought that was quite interesting, the God connection between Eric and
nice.
and the current condition. Yeah. That's a pic of the venue there in '73. Of people there waiting to go inside. See the Zephyrs there and the Cortinas and the Anglias. Simon.
And is that not? Look at the VW van.
Yeah.
Just next to the bus. Yeah, I think it's like a truck thing. Welcome to the UK in the 1970s. Black and white.
Yeah. I thought that was fascinating, and like I say, gentlemen, we'll throw up some more pics when we do live albums later on. I didn't realise this at the time, guys. I'm gonna before I do the proper intro, I want to share with you guys some thoughts, and maybe you guys can share your thoughts about this album. Brad, I wasn't aware of this album until about 2010, when I decided to take Clapton and this music seriously. I hadn't heard any of the previous releases of these songs. Nothing Simon that I can remember. But it wasn't until about 2010 when I was getting back into Clapton where a couple of friends of mine said, have you checked out the Rainbow concert? And I said, no. So I did a little bit of research at the time, and it was really, really interesting, Simon and Brad, the amount of people that were talking about the album.
Mute myself.
In a negative way, Brad. And I thought, oh, okay, this is pretty interesting. So I managed to grab a copy of the CD and I listened to it. And my appreciation of the CD and the recording was completely different from the reviews and the articles that I had read at the time, which again is no surprise when you consider some of the articles and books written on the subjects that we talk about, Simon.
No, true. Well, I think I remember when it came out, and it wasn't very well received. I mean, it only had 6 tracks on it, and I think that was probably, it seemed a bit of a token thing, and it didn't really go over that well at the time. I can remember hearing it at the time, but not thinking that much of it. But you're right. They're going back and doing the 14 tracks now is a completely different kettle of fish. And, I've been really enjoying 100%. It this week. It's been fantastic. I think actually it has lots going for it. Lots more than I thought in 1971.
Well, it was an album that so a lot of made solidified within me the power of Clapton as a live performer, Brad, mistakes and all, even though on this finished product that we've got doesn't have a lot of the mistakes that you can go and hear live on other sources that are out there. But I think the essence of this recording is fantastic. I personally recommend any Clapton fan to go out there and certainly listen to this. Don't listen to any reviews that you've read about this. I think, as the rock professor said, it's got a lot of gems, a lot of hidden power in the recording. Brad, do you want to give us a bit of a brief discussion on your experiences with this album?
Look, to be honest with you, when the very first times I ever listened to this album, I don't know, it just didn't. It didn't suck me in the way, other Clapton things had pulled me in. And there was obviously reasons behind that. I think a lot of it comes down to, it obviously understanding Clapton through the years now a lot better than I did at that point. I appreciate this album more. Let's say that, because I know what he was going through at the time and how important this performance and Towns and what he did and everything behind the scenes to get Clapton back on stage. So this is a very important album in a sense, or performance. So listening to it now, especially the last week that I've been deep diving into it, I appreciate it a lot more than I ever really have. But through the years, I've never really put this on as a preference, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I've not gone to my collection and put it on, even though I've got it. I've got it saved on iTunes. All my CDs are saved on iTunes now. So it's not one I would normally go to for Clapton. I will say that, but there's obviously through the years Clapton's done a lot of material, a lot of live recordings, and the production on it isn't as good as I'd like it to be, if that makes sense. The sounds, everything would be where they remastered it. Have they remastered this, guys? Like, have they done a real remaster?
Yeah. The 95 issue is remastered and remixed on the 8-track tapes and.
So the one we're doing is already remastered. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe remixed is the word I'm looking at, not remastered. To get, because some of the vocals need a little bit of push up front at times, drums and things like that. But overall, I really think the album is very important, and I appreciate it a lot more than I ever did. But I reckon up until maybe the mid 2000s, like around 2010, 12, 14, I never really listened to this album, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, and I think this is one of the reasons why this album is important, because when you consider the reason why Townsend got this project up and running, folks, if you're not aware of what was happening, we can talk about that now. Most biographies have made it pretty clear what was going on with Clapton, and there's some good biographies out there that go into the reasons why Clapton was in this self-imposed hibernation from 1970 basically to the end of 1973, so that was a long time that he was away from the spotlight. And the great thing about these British guys is that they were tight and they kept their community tight. And Pete, being forever the guy that was interested in how other people were doing, was always concerned about what was going on with Clapton. And the occasion, the celebration of the UK joining the common market, was a big deal for people back then. So they decided, okay, what we'll do then is we'll get together and we'll have a celebration for that. Oh my gosh, how times have changed, Rock Professor. You're no longer part of Europe now. But back then, it was a big deal for the community that they were going to get out there and celebrate that. So they booked this event, this major event, to try and entice Clapton out of his self-imposed exile. It worked, Brad and Simon. It worked. It got him out. It put him on the track. And then 12 months later, we got 461 Ocean Boulevard, Simon, which was probably the real event that got him out of this exile or this hibernation that he was put in. But what we like to do, though, on this channel is we like to talk and point out the steps. And this was certainly, Simon, that step in the right direction, wasn't it? I don't think if he had done this, this is my own personal opinion, Clapton would have been dead.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, I think that's the true thing about this. And I think at the time when it came out, that was the thing about the concert, was it got Eric back onto the stage. However, seemingly tentative or whatever, and not in great shape. But I mean, all credit to Pete Townsend for organising it. Other people as well. But getting him back out and playing, because I think, yes, the world of heroin addiction is a very insular world, isn't it? You retreat into yourself, and you can disappear quite easily. And fortunately,
and I recommend folks to go and read, go and check out some of the information that's out there on this time during Clapton's life. It's very interesting. I want to make it pretty clear, though, from the research that I've done, that Clapton wasn't locked away. He didn't lead a monastic life, folks, like I did for a long, long time. He was making trips to London. He was still out and about, but he wasn't completely locked away, in a cave, Brad, and had bars up. He was still kind of out there, but people knew, though, because, he was snorting heroin as opposed to, whacking it in the veins, that there was still this issue with him. And Pete Townsend, had been there, seen that, knew the signs, decided that, that he was going to do something, managed to get Ronnie Wood together, Steve Winwood, Jim Capaldi, Rick Gresh, all guys that he knew, all guys that he felt comfortable to be around. That was an important thing too, Brad.
Yeah, 100%. I think, it was like a security blanket for him to have the band he had behind him at this point of friends.
Yeah.
And of course, Winwood and Gretsch have been with in Blind Faith with him. So, comparatively recently. So, that was the basis of almost a Blind Faith, isn't it?
So smart, smart move by Townsend to do that. And, the rehearsals for the gig, ladies and gentlemen, depending on what you read and where you read, some people say 10 days, some books and biographers have said 7 days. But the point is that they were rehearsing from 9 a.m. in the morning, Brad and Simon, to 9 p.m. So they were taking it seriously. You know, they were interested in making sure that they were going to present something that was really, really good. Another key point about this concert too, folks, all the major players in the British music scene were interested in this gig. McCartney was there. All the stars were there. They were all lining up, and it got to a point where the tickets were sold out, Simon.
That's amazing.
It's quite intimidating. Imagine, people must have been quite intimidating for Clapton to go out knowing that McCartney and all these other people are there. You know, when he's there, when he hasn't really been doing it for a couple of years. You know, going out and playing. It's I think that's quite intimidating myself.
Well, they thought that was maybe an issue with Clapton, folks, because he was late, and it's an interesting story that we should talk about. He was late to the gig. I think he arrived 10 minutes before they were supposed to go on, and they were concerned. One of the reasons why some people thought that maybe he was going to be starstruck, you know, by the luminaries in the audience. You know, that was certainly one of the conversation pieces. But actually, in fact, his girlfriend at the time, Alice, was letting out his white suit because he'd been eating chocolate on that diet of heroin, and he'd put on a few pounds, so he couldn't fit that white suit. So that was the reason why he was late. It had nothing to do with Paul McCartney being in the audience. It was all about making sure those trousers fit, Brad.
It's all about whether the trousers fit, isn't it?
We've all been there, you know. We've all been there.
Yeah. So the gig was performed January the 13th, 1973. It was 2 gigs, ladies and gentlemen, and the album that we're listening to, that we're going to make reference to, the 95 one, is an amalgamation of those gigs, and we've got some pics that will show up. So if you just give me 2 seconds, just to tease something up, please, because this is part of my intro here, so I thought we'd play it and would release this on the channel as a separate thing. So you may have noticed, if you looked at pics over the years, that Clapton is playing a Stratocaster and he's playing his Les Paul. So the two gigs he's playing, the first gig is Strat and the second gig is playing his Les Paul. And what's really important about this gig, it's the first time that we ever get to see this black Stratocaster, Brad, which went on to be affectionately known as
Blackie.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you just give me a minute, I'll just play a video which is part of my intro for this record. This is what Clapton's saying about Blackie in his memoir. The guitar I chose to use was one I had built myself, a Fender Stratocaster I'd nicknamed Blackie. In the early days, in spite of my admiration for both Buddy Holly and Buddy Guy, both Strat players, I had predominantly played a Gibson Les Paul. But one day, while on tour with the Dominoes, I saw Steve Winwood with a white Strat, and inspired by him, I went into Showbud in Nashville, and they had a stack of Strats in the back of the shop. They were completely out of fashion at that time, and I bought 6 of them for a song, no more than $100 each. These vintage instruments would be worth about 100 times that today. When I got home, I gave one to Steve, one to Pete Townsend, the other to George Harrison, and kept the rest. I then took the other 3 and made one guitar out of them, using the best components of each. And thank you, Eric Clapton, for doing that, because another reason why I think this gig, in my own personal opinion, is important, because it's the debut of Clapton, Brad and Simon being known as a Stratocaster player.
100%.
Yeah, interesting.
And I love that little video you did there, Andrew. That was great.
Yeah, it was very cool. Yes.
Thank you, bro. Thank you, guys.
Man. I was wondering, I thought you might be showing something where somebody talked. I was thinking, "Oh, copyright," but no.
No,
Sounds
we'll do it
That's
ourselves.
really good.
Thank you. So guys, that's pretty much my intro. I think we should kick into the rankings. Brad and Simon. Brad, have you got anything you want to add to the intro? And then Simon, have you got something before we get into the tracks?
No, I think you've done a marvelous job, Andrew. Actually, I haven't really got anything else to touch on. Simon.
No, me neither. I think it's fine. Let's get into it. Roll through the 14 tracks. It's time to go.
Awesome. And that's a good point, Derek. And we've got a couple of picks during halftime that we'll talk about that, because there's some great picks of Blackie with the trem arm still fitted. So yeah, we'll talk about that. All right, folks. Okay, give me a second. I'll change my page because I'm analog.
Analog. How appropriate for something that's made out of wood.
I've missed 2 pages in that.
He's lost page 1. We're in trouble now. Improv. Dr.
Layla is the first track, folks. So just bear with me while I read my analog notes here. The vocal set on this track, in my mind, Brad and Simon, when I first heard it in 2010, gave me a full appreciation of where Clapton was at this point in time. It just blew me away when I heard the first utterances of him singing this. It's one of those interesting things, isn't it, that you hear over the course of your musical journey. You can hear a phrase, you can hear 3 or 4 syllables, you can hear a couple of notes on a guitar, and you just get it. And for me, Brad and Simon, hearing this part of this song just made it very clear to me in my mind where Clapton was. And we can talk about this as the songs progress. I kind of felt sorry for the guy. I remember feeling sorry for the guy hearing this song. The emotion that you get when you hear a song can give you all these things. And I do remember thinking that. I remember feeling, wow, this guy who had it all, and he's so scarred, so injured, Brad, that he's forced to sort of walk back, give it all up. And there's a lot of reasons why. And maybe we should do a show on that. We won't talk about that now because that could go on for 2 or 3 hours, our different theories. But thank you for at least Simon and Brad giving me a second to mention that. Right from the word go, we can hear the pain and the torment, going on in Clapton's life and in his mind at that time. I love it for that. Ronnie's slide guitar on this track, Brad, is phenomenal. It's just a phenomenal piece, and he gets better and better later on. I love the mistake. So we caught a couple of mistakes there. There's that mistake after the piano interlude with the guitar solo, where it misses a couple of notes. Fantastic. I love that because that gives the urgency of the track. You're listening to a live track. And this is before I knew, back in 2010, completely that it was all edited anyway. So again, I'm sort of remembering back the first time I heard this. I thought, wow, this is fantastic. So in my research over the years, I'm going to spoil it for people who are not familiar with it, but it's really, really important that this track that we're listening to is made up of 3 different versions. 3 different Layla versions, and we'll talk about the person that went and did the remixing because he deserves a medal. But 3 different versions went to make this track that we hear, and 99% of the mistakes are completely edited out which is really, really interesting because that's exactly, from what I understand, that Clapton wanted at the time in '95. A guy called John Astley was given the brief to go and remix this and remaster it to remove all the mistakes, and he basically did a pretty good job. Brad and Simon, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to talk about this interesting, remarkable track. I've given this a 9 out of 10. I've got the Rock Professor going next, and then Brad's going to come in because he's the backdoor man.
Yeah. I well, like the first thing I'd say, it's a pretty bold start, isn't it? If you haven't been on the stage for a couple of years, to start with Layla, as your opening track. I can see why you would, but I think that's a pretty bold move for anybody who's that out of practice. I think it's pretty, as somebody Derek says, it's not polished. It's pretty raw sounding. I think Eric's voice sounds a bit out of practice on some of it. Like he hasn't done a huge amount of singing recently, but and clearly they didn't. Ooh. That was weird. Went all sideways. Mr. Organising the screens. Ooh, that's scary. But I think you're right, Andrew. I think instrumentally, whoever put it together, I didn't realise it was several performances, or two or three performances. But I think that it's great. I think the three guitars give it a real beef, don't they? As a thing. There's just something about three guitar players playing that, especially in those days, it's not loads of distortion and stuff like that. So, if you've got a Les Paul into a Marshall and then you've got somebody else doing something else, you get a really big full sound. And I think, that some of the guitar sounds on this sound great to me. I've been really enjoying the guitar sounds. Are just, when they get to it, they start giving it, and it really pushes it along in a way that, as I say, one heavily distorted guitar doesn't do quite in the same way. But I think that it's quite a funky. I think the point I'd make about Ronnie Wood's slide solo is that it's not really like Duane Allman's. It's not really, he's clearly not copying Duane Allman. I think, keep away from that was a really good move on Ronnie's part, to kind of do his own thing. I think it's, Derek, I agree with that. And I think that's really important to say that it's great, and it doesn't really copy the Duane Allman thing, that really off the end of the neck thing. It doesn't really do that. So hats off to him. I think it's about the first time. I mean, they never did it in Derek and the Dominos, did they? Where they had the piano section. So Steve Winwood doing the piano section, put it all together, other things, and at the end the two guitars play beautifully together. It's really good. I gave it a 9 out of 10 too. I thought it was really great. As I said, it's not on the original album, so I hadn't heard it before. So and I don't really care if somebody's edited out the mistakes. I would be sitting there editing out my mistakes too. But it's a great performance and a great version of it as well. So 9 out of 10 for me. Brad.
Well, you gentlemen have done a remarkable job on this. It's hard to follow, as I'll say this every time I go third, but I'll just hit on a few things here. For Layla, for me, it's very raw. There is a sense of excitement and urgency in the performance. I put here, Eric's voice does sound great, but you can tell at times he's fragile and feeling strained. That's what I'll put there. I'll put there's nothing wrong with that either, to be honest with you. Like it gives a little bit of honesty there with Eric. We know, and like Andrew said, the first time you sort of hear it and you recognize what Eric has gone through at that particular time in his life, you do kind of have a little bit of sympathy and feel sorry for the guy at that point. Obviously, no one wishes that upon anyone, to get addicted and become a recluse because of where they are mental health wise. So it's good to hear him back out on stage and doing what he's supposed to be doing. You got to remember, artists like entertainers like Clapton are put on the planet Earth to perform and to entertain and to be inspirational. And it was great. And like Andrew said in the opening, if it wasn't for this gig, then it would have been Clapton's demise. I'm sure of it. They did a great job editing this up. The band is on fire. The band's playing great. There's some lovely slide playing from Ron Wood. Eric's guitar, it's easily identifiable what he's doing. He's got wonderful feel. It's Eric Clapton playing guitar as well. And there's some great backing vocals going on. You can really feel the support for Eric with his performance is what I put here. I gave it a 10, guys, 10 out of 10. Layla is always one of my favorite songs anyway. So, in running order of the album and the rest of the songs, I had to give this one a 10.
No problem. I can understand why you've given it a 10. Greg Roberts has given it a 10 out of 10 too. I just want to do a special shout out to Brooks Reed. I missed him a couple of shows ago. Nice to see you, bro. Brooks Reed is going to join us, ladies and gentlemen. We just need to organise an event and a time and a day for him to jump on and rank an album with us. Another Clapton nut. So thanks, Brooks, for hanging out with us.
Yep.
Thank you guys for your wonderful contributions to Layla. Look, I have to agree with you, Brad. It's a remarkable opening track, and as Derek said too, Clapton is fragile, and I love that. And for me, this opening track back in 2010 when I first heard it just pulled me in. I was a fan of the whole thing. Gets us up to the second track, gentlemen, which is Badge. And what's really interesting about this track is that you got classic Who clashing chords by Townsend on this track. It's remarkable. That 61-20 that he's playing that he got in 1970 again from Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh loves giving English guys guitars, doesn't he, Brad? He gave. Oh, we didn't give. He
sort of Jimmy Page.
You can give one to me if you want, so I don't mind.
Give is an interesting term.
well, point. He points a lot of these English guys because just a slight little detour. Tommy is heavily recorded. The guitar that Gretsch is all over the rock opera. Tommy.
Wow.
Yeah, and okay, so back to my intro, back to my my ranking. So you hear those classic Who chugging chords, clanging chords, chaotic chords, whatever you want to call it. I love it. It's fantastic. The vocals again, that fragility. I'm going to pinch that word that Derek used. I've got another word here. But I'm going to use that fragility of Derek's vocals again provides us a clue of where he's at. You can't escape it. You got a good solo, Brad, from Clapton on this track. It's an excellent collaboration between Townsend and Clapton. It's fantastic. I think the people in the audience would have been awe-inspired by this collaboration. They would have been familiar with this song probably a lot more than Layla. Got to remember too, it wasn't until Oceans Boulevard, 74, where Layla started selling. So, Layla could have been, an unusually unknown track for a lot of people in the audience. But I reckon a lot of people would have known Badge. Brad, Simon, great track. Rock Professor, I'm giving this 8 out of 10.
Yeah. It's I mean, I think that clearly, it's a 3-minute 18 song. They stuck to the structure of it and how it works. And I didn't really. It's not a lot of it's not jamming, a lot of deviation from the Morning Oven. Hope you're good. Not a lot of deviation from the recorded version. I think so. I think that's good. Sticking to the tight 3 minutes of the single. I mean, there's a couple of things. it's weird, isn't it? When you're listening to because we would I was doing it on YouTube, listening to versions on YouTube. So there are like complete. There's the like the complete concert with all of, and I'll pick up on a comment made by I think Greg Roberts earlier about Townsend. Doing. I mean, I think that role of being the MC and just whilst people are tuning up and getting into things, actually, I quite liked all that Townsend banter. I think he's not too bad at it, and I think it's very necessary if you listen to the whole thing like that. That he's doing that because they're tuning up and they're kind of getting themselves together and things, and somebody's got to do it, and I think stepping forward is it's some of the things that made me smile and stuff. He's been very light-hearted and sort of absolutely bringing in the right sort of atmosphere to it. So I personally am taking my hat off to Mr. Townsend and his emceeing. I know how difficult it is to do that sort of thing when you're in a band. The inter-song talking and stuff is quite difficult. But so I think it's got a great tempo. I think that great drumming from Jim Capaldi, setting the tempo, really good tempo. And I think that it's like a lot of these things. There's a great tempo and then there's not such a great tempo. You go too fast or too slow and it can alter the vibe of it. And so I think that Eric's a bit wobbly on some of the solos. The stuff I listened to I think was probably pre-editing. So I think I maybe got some more of the mistakes that maybe were there on one of the versions I listened to. But it didn't detract from my enjoyment of the album as a whole. And the individual songs, I think that the energy is there, the upbeat tempo, all that stuff is all there, and and the odd mistake from Eric is just the odd mistake. Clearly he hasn't been playing very much, so it's inevitable, really. So I wasn't put off at all by the things. I think so I give this 8.5 out of 10. Never a skip. It's a great version of it. It sticks to the original pretty much. So good stuff, Brad.
Well, Badge is one of my favourite songs that Clapton did, and I love hearing this song live. And this is another good version of it. I think the intro seems a little rushed the way it comes in, but then it settles pretty much immediately. Eric's vocal, very gruff. He's got a roary sort of gruffy sort of thing going on with his vocal. I kind of like it though. I think it sounds very cool. I think the band sounds great. Leading back into the song where it breaks, it seems a tiny bit rushed or a little bit comes in a little bit early, but I think that's fine. I mean, I think maybe I'm used to hearing 24 Nights and hearing a big gap before it comes back in. The guitar solo is great. There's some really parts in that solo where he's really making that guitar scream. Sounds fantastic. I don't know. There's a few things here and there that I noticed. Like at the end of the solo, I don't know if it's been edited, and it sounds like the band weren't sure where the solo was going to end, and they sort of jump. They catch it. Catch it. I picked that up. That kind of gives a cool edge to it, though. I think because you're hearing. Real band, real live. There's obviously eye contact, look around. Oh, yep, we've got the ending. We just made it. So that's pretty human. That's normal. The outro has like that sort of bluesy guitar playing with the accents that follow it. Sounds good. It sounds like they would have rehearsed that, but they didn't quite get the accents on. But overall, it's a really good version of the song, and I love it. It's 8 out of 10 for me, guys.
Fantastic.
Cool.
We've got 17 people watching us and hanging out with us. We really, really appreciate it. If you're watching and you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. All subscriptions to our channel, we subscribe back. If you want to be a person that has your channel on our communities page, let us know and we'll get you up there. Thank you, guys. Yeah, I agree with you. It's it's a great song. It's a great song, and I think it nails exactly what they wanted to achieve. I kind of left this for my conclusion, but I'm going to talk about it now before we talk about the next song. I think Derek, one of the reasons why Clapton's voice is so interesting to our ears, it's because, yes, he hasn't been playing live for 2 years, and we all know, you know, what a 2-week singing period can do to a voice too, Brad and Simon. You know, as I said in the intro, you know, they were rehearsing for 12 hours for 7 to 10 days. So that's a lot of work, you know, for a guy who hadn't been singing, Brad, for 2 years.
No, I agree with that. Interestingly, I've noticed that clearly, you know, over the pandemic period, didn't go out, didn't gig, didn't practice, didn't I? And I noticed that only now is my voice getting back to what it was. I'm not trying to compare myself, by the way, but in terms of its range, you know, that top end range is only now coming back. And we've been practicing for a year, kind of thing, you know. And I noticed the last few weeks, it's that top end is where my top end is starting to come back to be where it was. But it's taken them ages. I don't know about you, Brad. Have you found that as a singing person? Better singer than I am.
Yeah, I can relate because but mine's is slightly different too, Simon and Andrew, because I've been obviously with my voice and everything, like, you know, relearning how to do certain things with vocals and whatnot. But yeah, I totally get it. I can understand 2 weeks of rehearsals after 2 years of not performing. Your voice is really going to be taxed, and it doesn't matter whether you've had a couple of days off or a week off between the 2 weeks of rehearsals and jumping up on stage, or whether it's the next day. Your voice is still going to be, it's like going to the gym for the first time when you haven't been for a long time. Your muscles are going to be sore. You're going to feel like horrible for the first month probably, and then you start feeling good, and that's what happens.
Well, I'm glad that we discussed that, because again, I think this offers some kind of reality to the situation that Clapton was going back to, you know, in 73. So, you know, thanks, guys, and thanks, Derek, for prompting us to talk about that. Like I say, it was going to be in the conclusion, but we were always keen to bring things forward. Want to do a special shout out to Arvin, who's here. Thank you, Arvin, and KXM Rocks, who's listening to us while he's eating. So we hope we don't cause you to choke on anything, brother. So, yeah.
Nice.
Seriously. Blues Powers, the next track, guys. So this is the Clapton manifesto, isn't it? You know, it's a fantastic song. It's a song that he's always liked playing. It's off his first solo album, or off his solo album. You got that chugging Townsend chords chugging the song along. Brad, I love it. You know, he shunts it along in a different way from other versions that I've heard. And as a result of that, I love it. You know, it sounds a lot different to a lot of the other tracks. It's a remarkable piece of music. And as a result of that, we're all living on blues power. So 8 out of 10, Rock Professor.
Yeah, it's a welcome to 1973 was my initial thought. It's like, you know, it's got a bit of the classic Status Quo period, you know, that kind of 12-bar boogie blues thing is absolutely, you know, just at the heart of UK music in 1973. It's took me straight back to it as a thing. It's a really kind of energetic verse, isn't it? And that opening line, "Bet you didn't know I could rock and roll," is a fantastic, isn't it? As a kind of, you know, Mr. Slowhand blues player kind of thing. Is you know, I think that's pretty cool. I think that you know, it's got great piano from Steve Winwood on it, you know, kind of rock and roll piano, and some nice falsetto vocals as well. Somebody pulls, I don't know who's doing those in the background, but probably Townsend, but maybe Winwood. But Eric sounds energized, and you know, and a great solo. I don't know how much editing's been done, but I thought to myself, he's starting to warm up now, he's starting to get into it a bit. So, but as I said, I'm not entirely certain how much editing has been done on this, Andrew. I don't know if you know, but you know, a great extended solo and a cool breakdown towards the end. Yeah, I gave this 8 out of 10. Driving it along, great stuff.
Awesome,
Brad.
I'm glad you said driving it along, because I was driving along this while I was ranking it. So, Blues Power. Yeah, I love the song, and I love the way that Clapton covers it or does this song. And this particular version, you could, if you really sort of tried to blot out who's in the band, you wouldn't be. You could honestly say you'd be forgiven if you thought it was the Rolling Stones starting this song the way they do it. It's got that gruff sort of 70s Stones feel to it. And I love that. It's a great feel. The guitars are really raunchy. The band's cooking. I think Eric's vocal sounds a little bit more relaxed on this song. He's comfortable singing this. He's in the pocket. This is his comfort zone doing this stuff. Some great playing on the solos, like you guys have alluded to. There's some great jamming throughout the whole song. The breakdown section is very cool. I too gave this 8 out of 10, gentlemen. Never a skip.
No. Nope. Again, it's a contrast with the first two songs, isn't it? Layla's great opener, Badge is that kind of punchy power thing. And then you've got this kind of, 12-bar blues thing.
Yeah.
Getting about. Fantastic, yeah.
And bear in mind, folks, while we continue along this journey of this album, this is 1973. You've got a lot of popular music stars in the audience listening to this music. That's blues, rock, classic music. So in 1973, it was a completely different world musically, wasn't it, Brad and Simon? So again, we'll talk about that in our intro because I find that personally fascinating. Roll It Over. Interesting song, folks. A Clapton and Bobby Whitlock song that I first became aware of on the reissue of the Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs that came out. I think the 20th anniversary came out, and you've got a version of it on there. It's an interesting live version in the studio, the original version. This version here is a great jam, Brad. It's a great jam, and I think that's the important part about this song. It sets the scene, for these guys, and later on we're going to show you some pics. It's definitely one for the musicians in the band, this song. It lacks direction as opposed to a lot of the other songs. And I don't mean that in a harsh way, folks, but it certainly doesn't have the direction that a lot of the other tracks has. I get what they're trying to do, and Simon, having a bit of a jam in 1973 on stage is completely acceptable. Was a completely acceptable thing to do. But nevertheless, Brad and Simon, I'm giving this a 6 out of 10, only because I'm ranking this album, toughly. I'm doing tough love on this album.
Toughly.
But Simon, it's never a skip. 6 out of 10.
No. You're right. For me, this is like a groove song, isn't it? I mean, the verses sound like Creedence Clearwater to me. That very kind of swampy, that kind of swampy. Yes, Creedence Clearwater, never from the swamps, but had the swampy sound. Yes, I know. Yeah, shock horror pro. Which I think. But you're right. This is a kind of groove song, isn't it? It's for them to get into the groove. It's it's a kind of funky mid-tempo song. I'll make note of the guitar sound, which I think sounds great. I think there is a really great guitar sound in there. I don't know if it's a Les Paul into Marshalls or something, but it's got that kind of thick sound and some solid bass work. I gave it a 7 out of 10 and never a skip. Again, if you're putting together an album, we talk a lot about flow and programming and all those things. It's this is where you put this. It's a difference from the previous 3 tracks. So you're broadening it out, doing explaining what you do. So so 7 out of 10, never a skip. Mr. Cook.
All right, for me, I've put for Roll It Over. I put it's got that that classical sort of mid-tempo blues that feel that. That we associate like Clapton's blues, like it's got that classic feel for him. Great vocals and harmonies. I put the vocals. There's still a rawness present. The band's on fire. I put that there. The guitar solo again has a very Stones feel to it. I put that there, and I mean, I guess Ron Wood's part of the band, so there's going to be some Stones element in there. You know,
Yep.
that's the Stones that we know with Ron Wood. That's got that sort of sound to it. The band sounds a little bit more settled on this song. I too gave it 7 out of 10, gents. Never a skip though. Never a skip.
Fantastic. Fantastic. No, my mustache is not falling off.
He's had to go and stick his entire beard back on.
I went to grab a cake. Thank you.
Man.
But I can hear you guys when I'm grabbing, while I'm grabbing cokes. So just
Dragging.
remember that.
Just
remember I'm listening to you guys.
Do I sing?
Okay, boss.
I try. KMS rocks. KXM rocks. I try to sing. Yes.
Do you sing and rewind in your 80s band, Brad? Or
A couple of
you
songs.
just do
Yeah.
backing vocals. Do you? Oh, well
No,
done.
I sing a couple of lead. Yeah.
We're all on the money. We're all on the money there. Alan's given it 7 out of 10. The next track, folks, is Little Wing. No surprise to a lot of you if you're regular to our channel. Our thoughts and impressions on this track, Little Wing, and what it means for us, and more importantly, what it means for Clapton. It's no surprise he would have picked this to record, given the passing of Hendrix is one of the reasons why he could have gone into this hibernation period, So, a lot of people talk about the passing of, his father, i.e. grandfather, and Hendrix having a huge, profound effect on him. So, the fact that they've picked this song to record is really, really important, Brad, for Clapton. And I like that. It's a chaotic but heartfelt version of Little Wing. The guitar work on the lead is interesting, and it sometimes chokes the rhythm on this track. It's a little criticism that I have. You got some nice touches from Ronnie, though. When I listen to it on headphones, you can hear Ronnie playing there in the mix. It's fantastic. It's a key song for Clapton, Eric. We know that. Brad and Simon. It's a key song for him. I've given this, it's an interesting song, interesting version. I've given this 9 out of 10, Simon. I'd be keen to hear what you guys have to say about this track.
Yeah. I think it's a great, it's not very like the Hendrix version, is it? I mean, that very powerful intro that they do, that it's not that start and then I mean, I think that Eric plays really well on it. Actually, I really like the sort of the that melodic playing over the bass drums and the organ. I thought it was really good. And actually, I thought, he's starting to get into it now. Eric, he's starting to feel his way through it. As you rightly say, it's a very important song for Clapton, because Hendrix is very important. And I know that Clapton felt his death keenly, didn't he, as a when he died, and that was just, and so I think that this is a really great version. I think the solo is melodically strong. It really picks out the melody and plays beautifully. I think it's and I thought the singing was pretty strong as well. I thought there's some great backing vocals as well on it to give it some extra. I gave this an 8 out of 10 and never a skip. I thought it's a really great version. Yeah,
fantastic,
Brad.
I can't really say too much more than you gentlemen have already done, but I've just put here lovely guitar playing on this song. I really enjoyed the organ from Steve Winwood. That's like hypnotic, gives a really beautiful feel to the song. Eric's vocal again, very raw. He sings this very well, even in this, in this particular time in his career. He's singing great. There's the structuring of this song. It's not identical to the original. It's not intended to be like the original. The introduction is not even in the original, and that section that repeats like the intro, it's not in the original. It's something that they just put in there to make the song have dynamic. And we know it's a very important song for Eric, and I think, with his vocal, it evokes emotion. You can really feel his emotion in the vocal of this song. Some great jamming throughout the song and great guitar playing. The band is really cooking and it sounds great. I gave it 8.5 out of 10, gents.
Wow.
Never a skip.
The Hendrix expert.
Yeah, it's a good version. It's, certainly warrants its place. And, again, in our conclusion, we'll talk about the songs that he picked, because it's, it's an interesting set of songs that he picked. And that leads us up to the next song, which is Bottle of Red Wine. Interesting song for Clapton, guys. This is a song that Clapton and Delaney Bramhall wrote together. And if you're not aware of this, Clapton was inspired by Delaney, because he wrote this in the back of a taxi on the way to a recording studio or a hotel, depending on what version of the story you were listening to. And that had a huge influence on Clapton as a songwriter, because he was blown away that you could write a song about a bottle of red wine, and that process of doing that, back when he was recording his solo album a couple of years beforehand, Brad, had a huge influence on Clapton, about these ordinary things in life, that songwriters can take. And Clapton talks about that fondly himself too. It's a cool rocker, Simon. The star on this track for me is Jim's drums. He rocks on this with his drums. I've given this an 8.5 out of 10. Never a skip, Simon.
Okay, yeah. It's got a cool twin guitar start, isn't it? And then into a kind of pretty straightforward 12-bar shuffle. I like the singing with the 2-part harmonies. That's pretty cool. And the rock and roll piano, Steve Winwood, giving it to tickling the ivories. And I think it's got a pretty punchy, energetic solo to it as well as a guitar. And again, I mentioned the guitar sound. I really like the guitar sound on this, this record. I think it's really good. And clearly in 1973, there's not much between the guitar and the amp, so that must be the person who's playing it. I gave this a 6.5 out of 10. I don't think it's one of the stronger songs on here. I wouldn't, I sort of hedge about whether I would skip it or not. I think there are times when I might skip it as a song. I think it's a bit more anonymous than some of the other stuff. But it's fine. But yeah, 6.5 out of 10 from me. And could occasionally skip if I was feeling in the wrong mood. Brad.
Well, I don't mind a bottle of red wine every now and again. A nice glass of red, anyway. It's an up-tempo bluesy number. It's got that real gruff guitar that you mentioned, Simon. I really like that raunchy guitar tone. I find that sort of sound inspiring to me. I really enjoy that. It's a lot of fun, cool vocals, and the dual vocal parts sound great. The band's great with these up-tempo feel numbers. They work really well together with these sort of songs. Eric sounds comfortable with these sorts of numbers, but I gave this song a 7 out of 10, gents, and it's never a skip for me. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree with you guys. It's a great song. Ellen loves it. Foot stomping beat, which is really good. KMX Rocks found you on Instagram.
He's following you, Brad. another disciple.
That's good. Thank you very much.
And there's the rest of the rat bags there on the bottom there if you want to throw us a follow. We're up to the next track, ladies and gentlemen. After Midnight, remarkable live version of JJ Cale's song of Clapton. It's a remarkable version. It's off his solo album as well. In my opinion, Simon, I reckon this version is better than the two versions that we had.
Oh, interesting.
You know, the Delaney mix and the original mix on his solo album. I love the transition that you have in the solos between Eric and Ronnie. They're exceptional here on this track. Simon and Brad, I've given this a 10 out of 10.
Wee. Yeah, it's for me it's I don't know, something about it. Clearly not like the JJ Cale version, which is where I came in. I can remember buying Naturally kind of in this early 70s, mid 70s period. Love that album, by the way. JJ Cale's fantastic. But this, I don't know, it's a bit straighter. It's straighter than the kind of other versions. Doesn't quite have that swing to it to me, but it's as like it's just a bit straighter when the way they play it, and the kind of rhythm is slightly different on it when they're playing the chords in the verse and things. As you say, great solos. Really like the solos, and I think both of them are really cool. And I give this 8 out of 10, but I would never skip it. Couldn't quite get it out of my head that it should swing a bit more, but I think that's me. Brad.
After Midnight. I mean, I love the song. I always have, and I like all the versions that I've heard of it. But this is a very interesting version of the song. I put here raunchy guitar tones, strong vocal from Eric. I think he's again very comfortable singing these songs. He's found his groove. The tempo to me is intentionally lagging, and it's a very laid back solo from Eric, I believe, and it builds up slowly, and the outro solo sort of lifts a little. The song ends interestingly, I put, and it sounds like someone gave a head nod and they sort of all fell into place. But I like that in a live performance. I think that puts a bit of human element into it, and a song like After Midnight, that there's obviously a structure they follow, but that there's an option to jam in a lot of these songs, and this being one of them. But they pull it together pretty well. I gave it 8 out of 10, gentlemen. Never a skip.
Fantastic. Hugh's given it 9.5 out of 10, and I think KXM Rocks are saying it's a killer tune. I hope he's talking about this tune. Correct me if I'm not. Thank you guys for your rankings, your honest opinions, because that's what it's about. We're up to Bell Bottom Blues, folks. Beautiful vocals by Clapton. He's starting to sound really, really good now. It's interesting because we've got Townsend's guitar. I suspect it's Townsend. And some of those unnecessary licks gets in the way of Clapton's vocals. It's interesting. It's acceptable though. It's acceptable, but I don't think it's Ronnie playing those licks. I'm pretty sure it's got to be Townsend. And you can imagine Townsend rocking out, with that Gretsch on this number. You can still feel Clapton's pain on this song. We know the reason why he wrote this. It's, a song to Patty, because she wanted some bell-bottom trousers when he went to the States. He said, "Is there anything that I can get you when I'm over there?" And she wanted some bell-bottom trousers. And as Derek said that we were going to talk about in the conclusion, Patty's in the audience watching. So he would have known that too. He would have known that she was there. So I'd like to think, Brad and Simon, that, that vulnerability that we can hear and that heartfeltness and that sincerity and that clarity on this vocal track is because of that. I don't know. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Got a nice solo. A little bit thin. The solo's a little bit thin on this track, but that's okay. And
playing the Strat.
Yeah, the key for me on this track too is Winwood's keyboards. They're incredible on this track. You can hear how it floats in between the other instruments, Brad. I think it's remarkable. It's the first time in my ear that I'm becoming aware of the keyboards on this album with this song. I too have given this, well, like my previous rankings, 10 out of 10, I've given this a 10 out of 10. It's an exceptional track. Rock Professor.
Yeah, it's one of the strongest tracks on here, isn't it? It's Eric sings really well on it, and as you say, there's the impassioned vocals from Eric. I'll make mention of I think the bass and the drums are really solid. I think Jim Capaldi and Rick Gretsch do a fantastic job of holding down the rhythm section across the whole concert. I think they're really good. I really enjoyed their playing, and I think they're sympathetic and doing what needs to be done. I think it's really good. I'll also make mention of like the harmony slide part as well, which I presume is Ronnie playing that, which I think was really nice. Lovely kind of addition to it. I agree with you about. I made a note too about the beefy chords from Pete Townsend, which I assumed was Pete Townsend as well. You can imagine his arm whirring round as he hits the Gretsch with everything he's got. But I enjoyed them. I thought that's fine. I think that's what Townsend does. And I think that as I said earlier, that thing about there's not much between the guitar and the amp actually makes it acceptable, makes that fine to me. It's not overbearing. It's not this massive kind of huge sound. It becomes part of the song, I think, and I thought it enhanced it. And I like the solo. I thought the solo was great. Melodic, plenty of feel there. Doing what Eric does best, really. I agree with you. The sound's a bit thin, but as I say, Eric singing really well on this. I gave this 9.5 out of 10. Never a skip. Great version. Brad.
Well, Bell Bottom Blues is one of my favourite songs on Layla and other assorted love songs. So I just love hearing this song, and I think it's a great version. I think Eric's vocal is great. Great backing vocals as well. I've put here, without repeating everything you gentlemen have said, I'll put lovely guitar solo. It's delicate. Let me say there's delicate, playing in that solo. And I love the guitar playing underneath the vocal, the little lead licks and everything that are there. The band are really together and sounding really great on this song. I was aware that, through my research, that Paddy Boyd was potentially in the crowd. So knowing the history of this song and Layla, I think by this point, Eric is still feeling those emotions and putting them into the performance. And for that reason alone, I gave it a 10 out of 10. I think it's a great version of the song, guys.
Yeah.
I kind of thought you would. I knew that you loved the song too, so I kind of thought that you'd give it a 10 out of 10. Yeah,
it's hard not to.
Yeah.
I think I'm really honest with my rankings on this album, and I think it deserves a 10. Like the first track, I think, for me.
Awesome. No, appreciate everybody's comments. We all do, and everyone's ranks and the tracks, and please feel free, if you're watching on a replay, offer some of your opinions on the tracks that we're talking about too. We'd love to hear what you think about the individual tracks, and if you can't do that, let us know what you think about the album on a whole. We love getting comments on our videos. If you can do that, folks, that would be great. Presence of the Lord, next track. Look, I've gone on record, folks, when we've discussed this on 3 or 4 other albums where Clapton has sung this song. I think it's one of Clapton's finest songs ever. And it's interesting that he wrote this very early on in his career. I love the story. It's not necessarily, a song about God and the Lord, but I suspect later on it probably is for Clapton when you consider the trials and tribulations that he goes through or journeys on. If you're not aware of it, when he bought his house, mansion, estate, Hurtwood, he felt like he was in the presence of the Lord after buying it and wrote the song immediately. And as a songwriter myself, to some degree, you're inspired by these basic things and these great things, and the fact that he'd finally achieved some kind of success in his life, Simon, this working class guy from Surrey, buying this house is an achievement, and he wanted to celebrate that. I love that story. Winwood sings this, as he does with the original version on Blind Faith. And we've ranked that album too, folks. I'd love to revisit that album with you guys again. I've completely changed all my rankings on that album. I'd love to talk to you guys about that again. At 3 minutes and 3:06, you've got an amazing wah solo by Clapton. I wanted to give this a 10 out of 10, Brad. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. I love the song. Love it, though. It's a fantastic song. Rock Professor.
Yeah, it's I agree. It's one of Eric's great songs, isn't it? And I like the piano beginning at the beginning. That's, Steve Winwood, kind of just, nailing it down and I think Eric plays around, again, the singing, I think is a bit tentative in places. I didn't think it was quite still, feeling his way into it a bit, which is why, don't blame him for that at all, because I think that having had a couple of years off, you are going to be a bit tentative on some of these things, aren't you? Especially if they mean a lot to you. Could be a bit, but it's got nice dynamics with the guitars being louder around the chorus and things that I really like. I gave this a 9 out of 10. Never a skip. Lovely version of it. Heartfelt.
Yeah, Presence of the Lord. It's a wonderful song. My observation of it was that it starts off a little disjointed compared to other versions I've heard, but they get it together very quickly. Like they pull it together very quickly.
Yep.
And I do feel like the tempo of this version's a little slow. Just one little detraction for me. Steve Winwood, I mean, he sings on this one and sounds great. Of course, some lovely guitar playing throughout the verses of the song, and 2 minutes into it, 2 minutes 50, I think there's that wah wah solo that Andrew mentioned, and we all love wah wah solos and wah wah pedals. We can't get enough of them on this channel, so great. It's a good solo, and overall the song, it's kind of lagging a bit for me. I wish it was just a minuscule quicker. Just for me, it feels like it's dragging a little bit, but I gave it 8.5 out of 10 and never a skip.
Awesome. Fantastic. Tell the truth. How many times have you been told that, Simon?
It's one of the adages. It's one of the adages that I live my life by, especially my working life. You tell the truth, because you'll be in less trouble for telling the truth than you will for not telling the truth.
Tell the truth. Interesting song, folks. Off the Layla album, one of my favourites. Rick and his bass, Brad, come into the element on this song. You can actually hear the bass playing on this, and it's remarkable. I love that. And then you've got Ronnie. My gosh, Ronnie's slide, especially that outro solo that he does. It's exceptional. And I love the way that they're weaving in between Clapton's lead on this track. It's a remarkable piece of musicianship between Ronnie and Eric on this number. I've given it 9 out of 10. Love this version, Simon.
It is a good version, isn't it? Yeah, it definitely, you know, Eric singing, kind of impassioned singing. You know, that is such a great line, isn't it? Tell the truth. You know, it's a kind of, you can declaim it in a really way. It's pretty much a straightforward 12-bar blues again. Welcome to 1973, the home of that 12-bar boogie thing. Great piano playing by Stephen Wood as well, and I think that I like Ronnie's slide on it as well. I think Ronnie's slide guitar playing on it is really cool. Gives it that dynamic difference. I think Ronnie does a really good job on this album. Actually, I think that there's a sort of nuance and subtlety to his playing that not necessarily quite the case in the Faces, where it's a bit more upfront. But yeah, really good. I gave this an 8.5 out of 10, and never a skip. I think it's a great version of it as a song, and Eric's into it, which is always a good idea. Brad.
Awesome. Brad, after you've finished your rankings on this, bro, we'll flick through the photos if that's okay.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Sounds
Cheers,
great.
bro.
Tell the truth, great guitar playing on this one, and lovely slide through the verses. Eric's vocals very strong on this song. The band's cooking, sounding very, very tight and together on this one. I've put here highlighting Ron Wood is on fire. I thought that was him playing slide, and I think he just plays so great, like Simon alluded to. The bass playing, Andrew, I think you mentioned that. I'll put here bass playing in this song is very strong, and it really stands out as opposed to all the other songs. The band is performing, this song fantastically. I gave it 8.5 out of 10 and never skip, gents.
Brilliant. Okay, folks, yeah. I'm going to throw up some photos and give you a quick commentary on. So this is the cover of the reissue, the 95 reissue that we're talking about.
Yep.
Pretty interesting cover. There's a pic there of Clapton playing Blackie, and notice where the trem arm is.
Yeah.
Turning left.
Yes. If you have a close look at Eric's face there, you can really see, he's in a different point, in his career. Like, he's not really looking. He's looking okay, but he's not looking that well.
We're looking at a heroin addict, aren't we? Yeah.
He's not looking that well.
That's a famous pic that I've always loved. Always loved that pic.
Yeah.
And I just thought, when I was getting some of these pics, guys, when I was thinking about a channel colour for us, because we do go into kind of a bit of post and pre-production work, ladies and gentlemen, on this channel. I was thinking of a colour for our channel, and a lot of the live photos from the 70s, you'll notice that they had that orange, reddish kind of hue. So that's no accident that you'll notice that our channel colour is orange, and it's a reflection of this era, if you didn't already pick that up. It's a black and white pic there of the guys, Ronnie, Rick, Clapton playing his Les Paul, and look at Pete leaning into it, Brad.
Yes.
Having fun.
Classic.
Yeah. It's a great photo, that one.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. Eric with his Les Paul. We can only approve.
That's the whole band there. You can see on the left hand there, you can see Steve, and again the main characters there with their amps behind them.
Interesting setup to have the drums all the way over there.
Yeah.
I thought that would make more sense to have the drummer in the middle.
Yeah, it's weird off to the right hand side, isn't it? A bit, but I don't know.
There's Steve and Ronnie with his
Pete and Ronnie.
sorry, Pete and
Surely
Ronnie.
that's Pete. Yes.
What's that guitar that Ronnie's playing?
Zemetis.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday with Chris.
Yeah, cool guitars.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. The detail on those guitars is amazing. On the tops of them, they're beautiful.
Another interesting pick there of the band.
The 3 white suits.
Yeah, there's a theme, isn't it? You know, during the concert for Bangladesh, you've got George Harrison wearing a white suit. Obviously, Lennon wearing white. Abbey Road. These English guys love their white suits, Brad.
Yeah,
we did it. We did in 1973, but only in 1973.
There's a pic of Ronnie at the gig playing slide, and notice where his slide is. It's on his index finger. So he alternates because there's pics with him playing with the Stones where he's got it on his little finger and the finger that's in between the index finger and the little finger, the third finger. So he's not particular where he puts the slide.
That's how it feels on the night, Andrew.
Yep. Some pics here of Clapton playing his Les Paul.
Great pics.
Simon, £1.50.
£1.50. You see, amazing.
I couldn't find any close-up pics, ladies and gentlemen, of Steve from the gig. But this is Steve from '73 when he's playing with Traffic, just to give you a bit of a idea of how cool he is with his long hair. There he is there.
Yeah, and he's about 23 there, isn't he? 24 years old.
Yeah. Another famous pic there of Clapton with Blackie. There's the Temple of God, also known as the Rainbow Theatre. Now the Temple of God.
No.
Thanks for letting me throw up some pics, folks. Pearly Queen is the next track, guys.
Yep.
So this is a Winwood number from his band Traffic. There's a lot of different versions around. One of the greatest versions is the Winwood Clapton version that they did in 2008. It's a fantastic version. I can't wait for us at some stage to go through and talk about that DVD to the three of us. It's just a remarkable recording and video. We talk about that often. We've got to do it at some stage. Yeah. I've got a couple of issues with this song, guys. There's just too much cymbals in the mix for me by Jim, and it's not Jim's fault. Clearly, it is an issue with the production of this track. You got Eric and Pete and Ronnie doing some cool, tight guitar work together on this track. Brad, I love it. Clapton does his best Dave Mason impression ever, Simon. So we'll give him 10 out of 10 for doing that. But it's just too much cymbals going on here, and it gets in the way of the track. It could be sometimes a skip for me, guys. I've given it an 8 out of 10 though, but I could see myself skipping this because of the cymbals. It's just too much for me. Rock Professor.
Interesting. Sorry, I'm going to answer Arvin's question. He's asked a question about how my dad went about composing things, which is quite a difficult question to answer. Depends, Arvin. If he's doing film music, then you get a rough cut of whatever he's doing, the program he's doing, and then the old genius mind comes up with, in the West, I'm sure in the same sort of way that anybody does it. there's a kind of, the pictures trigger something inside his composing head, and out comes the music. And I know that that my dad used to, when he was going to the studio to do a recording, with musicians, with violinists and floors, he would be writing out the parts in the taxi on the way to the session, which used to cause some, but clearly it was all in his head, and then he would just sit in the taxi and write out the parts and things, do that. So it's it's, I would claim, because I'm his son, I think there's a genius at work there, being able to do all of that, being able to do those things. I could be wrong, but he's my dad, so I'm allowed. But I hope that answers it, Arvin, as a thing. The other pick I pick up is Derek says that someone mentioned Clapton played Blackie in the first show and Lucy in the second, which I don't think we had.
No, it wasn't Lucy.
Was it not Lucy? Was it definitely Blackie? Both of them.
No, it was a Les Paul he played in the second show.
Oh.
Yeah,
right.
I mentioned that in the intro, Simon, but it wasn't
cool.
Lucy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Was it not? Okay, fine.
No.
Cool. It's a Pearly Queen. Yeah, as you said, a showcase for Steve Winwood to do some singing and play his organ and things. So it's a pretty loose, funky feel to it. Very much in traffic. They went away to the country and spent a lot of time in a cottage, kind of jamming together. I think this has something of that. Reasonable guitar solo. I gave this a 7 out of 10. I didn't think it was that thrilling myself, this particular version. And I could possibly skip it on a bad day if I wasn't feeling it. There's plenty of other cool things to listen to on this track. So yeah, it's fine. Does its job, showcases the Steve Winwood thing. But yeah, I think a little less than some of the Eric stuff. So 7 out of 10 from me.
Yeah.
Pearly Queen, I've got lovely intro to this song. The vocals are a bit far back in the mix for me, and that like yourself, Andrew, when you said the cymbals would detract from this song. The vocal seemed a little bit too far back in the mix. Now, I don't know whether that's a production thing or whether Steve Winwood's singing too far away from the microphone. I would assume that that's not necessarily the case because he's a professional. So I'm assuming it's a mixing. And I did pick up on the cymbals being very washy and feeling sonically a little bit. I've actually put here, there's a few little bumps and lumps and bumps throughout the song sonically. That's what I've put. That being said, great vocal from Steve Winwood. I enjoyed hearing them all play that guitar line together, that, as you mentioned, Andrew. I put here great drumming in this song. The cymbals are overpowering. Great. The drumming's fantastic during the guitar solo. There's some really cool drumming going on there. The solo has some wonderful layered rhythm guitar parts underneath as well. And the solo just floats over the top of that. 7 out of 10 for me, gents. Never a skip.
Okay, cool. I thought it might be a bit out of place on that, but clearly not.
No. Key to the Highway, folks, is the next track. Simple 8-bar blues here on this track, and it's Clapton and Duane Allman's epic on the Layla album. It can't be denied. It's an epic track on that album. And this song has a huge legacy, and it's pivotal in the blues tradition, isn't it? Everybody has done this song. We've all jammed along to it on the Layla version. There's not a bad version of this or a subpar version of this song that Clapton's ever done, in my opinion, Simon and Brad. I love those triplets too. At the end of the solo, on the end, you can start to hear Clapton coming alive. Just these little bits coming through. Great that we can hear that. I love it. Important song to Clapton. 10 out of 10. Never a skip.
No, I agree. Yes, I mean, there's never a bad version of this song, isn't it? Eric clearly loves this song, and I think it's got great swing, I love the bass playing on it. I think Rick Gretsch does a great job on it, and I think that there's some cool piano from Steve Winwood, and Eric's singing in good voice on this, definitely good voice, and there's his first solos are a little bit all over the place, but I don't really care. I think he's got some passion and some energy to it, and I think that those things overcome without any problems, really. I think you've got to go for it, haven't you? Just sometimes you just got to go for it, and if there's the odd bit that doesn't quite work, you just crack on. It's live, get on with it. So I thought that was really good. I think it's really got a great slide solo as well. Again, I'd shout out to Ronnie for not doing the Dwayne Allman thing, not just copying Dwayne Allman, but doing his thing around it and stuff. He's a pretty good slide player, Ronnie. He's done quite a lot of Faces stuff, has some slide stuff, which is really cool. So and I like the drop down into that quiet solo before that builds back up to full throttle to the end. I'll give this a 9 out of 10 and never a skip. I really enjoyed it. It's got a swing and a feel to it that are infectious to me, anyway. Brad.
Yep.
I've put here. It's a slow blues standard that Eric insists on continuing to play because it is a great song and he loves it.
Yeah.
He feels comfortable playing this song. And I'm not surprised that this song's actually in the set list as well, being that he's trying to, get back on stage and be comfortable. And he sings this very comfortably. It's a good vocal from Eric. There's some great guitar playing on this song. The band's very laid back. They're sitting in the pocket of this song. I've also got here great slide from Ron Wood. There's some very cool interplay and jamming throughout the song, but they stick to the progression and everything like that very, very well. Look, it's not my favorite version of this song, but I gave it 8.5 out of 10, gents.
Yep.
Never a skip.
Can we just say good morning to Kubrick Lover 1972? Good to see you, Kubrick Lover. Hope you're well. Long time supporter of the channel. So that's good morning to you.
Hey Kubrick, good to see you. And go and check out his channel, folks. A couple of days ago, he uploaded a video on his channel. He's doing some musical pieces on his channel.
Extraordinary soundscapes. He does extraordinary kind of soundscape stuff. Yeah, it's really cool.
Good friend of the channel, with us right from the beginning. Next track, folks, is "Let It Rain." Wow, fantastic intro. The bass, the drums, the keyboards, just bang. Hit you. I just love it. I think it's fantastic, Brad. It's a shame that Eric's vocals are a little bit lost in the mix on this, but nevertheless, it's an epic effort. 7 minutes of brilliance, and it's that groove that the rock professor's been talking about, that swing that the rock professor's been talking about on previous tracks that may have it or may not have it. Well, that groove is constantly inspiring the band to deliver on this song because it's there, obviously. It's obvious on this track. Let me just turn my page, ladies and gentlemen, because I've got another page of notes here on it. Fantastic track. If you're interested in why Eric's tone changed after the drum solo on this, it's because he broke his string on his Les Paul and had to finish the song off with Blackie. If you're interested, if you can pick up the tonal variation, it's interesting. 7 minutes, as I said, of brilliance. This is a Brad score for me. I just think the band are on fire on this number. You can imagine, Brad, in my mind, you've got the Rolling Stones at Madison Square Garden in '69, and you can see the people jumping on the chairs, at Madison Square Garden. I can imagine that they're doing this with Let It Rain at the Rainbow Theatre. I love the track. It's a Brad score. Simon.
Yeah. It is a great. I tell you what, I couldn't stop myself. Every time it comes, it's got a fantastic melody, but it is completely "It Don't Come Easy" by Ringo Starr. isn't it? Do you not? I just sang it, and you know it don't come easy. You just sing that over the top of it. It's like, but you know what it's like once you've got those things in your head, they're in your head. You know, as a thing. It's
Yeah, thanks, Simon.
yeah. Sorry, did you do that as well, Brad? Is that what you were doing as well?
But now I will.
Oh no, that's not a criticism, by the way. It's just I love it. Ringo, those early Ringo Starr singles are great, but yeah, that's when you hear it and you go, oh yeah, then you can't get it out as a thing. But that's fantastic. I like that sort of. You know me, I love that sort of thing. Picking out another song, something that sounds like it or whatever. Yeah, these days can get you into trouble, but I think back then it was just fine, whatever. I don't know if they're related in any way, shape, or form, but it's as you say, Andrew. It's got. I thought Clapton sang well on this. I think the nice organ part from Steve Winwood, who's definitely knows how to back and support and things. So that was really cool. Got great guitar sound as well. Towards the end, and that when they start soloing and stuff, it's a great rhythm guitar section driving the solo along that I really liked the sound of it and what they're doing. And that, as Andrew, as you said, I wrote it down. Fantastic groove over 2-chord vamp, at the end, and letting them get on with it. It's fantastic. 10 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. Love it. It's great.
Brilliant.
And you get an extra point for the Ringo connection.
Let it rain. I've got here very raunchy guitar intro. The band's cooking. Up tempo feel right in the pocket. They're sitting right there in the pocket. I've got Eric's vocal is good. Definitely sitting comfortably in this song. There's a lot of jamming going on in this song. There's some great guitar parts all around. I enjoy the little breakdown section with the percussion and the organ interplay. Overall, the band sounds really tight, and they've done a great job on this song. And without doubling up on what you gents have already said, I gave this a 10 out of 10. Never a skip.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Greg Roberts, go and learn Key to the Highway. It's easy. It's in A. You can play it in any chord you want, any key you want. It's easy. Go and listen to the Layla version and put it on and rock it out. You'll love it.
Yeah. It's a standard. Got to do it.
Thank you. It wasn't just me that thought it was the easy one on this.
No. Well, it's just, it's great.
Swing,
it's just,
yeah.
The difficulty, this is where it's interesting, just as a little bit of a diversion from the conversation. The difficulty in playing an 8-bar or 12-bar blues song is keeping the groove for 5 or 6 minutes. That's Brad's, you're not doing Slash leads or Eddie Van Halen flourishes. You're just sitting in the pocket there and you're doing a 12-bar groove.
100%.
It's difficult in the sense that you gotta, you go and do that for 7 minutes, Greg, and come back and tell us next week.
Homework. You're now being set homework, Greg. Hope that's all right.
Okay, folks, this is where it's going to get a little bit interesting here. The last track on the album is Crossroads. There's nothing special going on here on this track for me. You've got an interesting solo. It's in the tempo that Clapton continues with right through the 70s. In fact, there's even slower versions on the blues catalogue that came out a few years ago. Some really rough, interesting versions of this song that Clapton has sung when he's been on the Juice, Brad and Simon. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a couple of skip versions over the course of his career. Look, it's a great song for Clapton. He's done better versions, it's a song, Brad, that we know that, like Key to the Highway, that he's continued right through his career, and we know why. It goes back to the love and admiration he has for Robert Johnson, who's a huge influence on Clapton. So we know why that's there. But there's nothing special going on here for me. In fact, after listening to Let It Rain, it's a disappointment listening to this song. And I think if they made a mistake on this reissue package, it's ending this package with this song. They should have put this song before Let It Rain and let the whole thing end with Let It Rain. That's my opinion. I've given this a 7 out of 10. It's never a skip, but it's, a bit of a disappointment after the previous song. Rock Professor.
Do you think they're, as it clearly the last song, I agree. I think, it's a centerpiece of his, what he's done since Cream, really, isn't it? This is one of the songs that he always does, and and so clearly never not going to do it. But I liked it as a verse, and I thought it had great 3-guitar beginning, and I thought that it's got a groove and it's got some really cool bass playing in it as well. And I made a note particularly of the rhythm guitar under the solos and stuff to drive it along. And the second solo I thought had some fluidity and some musicality to it. And then you've got Ronnie doing a slide solo towards the end. I gave this an 8 out of 10. I think they probably were getting tired, to be honest. I think, he's done 2 shows. This is the end of the second. I don't know whether this is the first show or the second show, but if he's towards it did strike me that you might be getting tired if you've not performed for 2 years, and you go out and do 90 minutes, whatever it is, a couple of, that you'd be getting tired towards the end, wouldn't you? And wanting to finish. Yes, as I said, 8 out of 10, never a skip. But you're right, there are a lot better versions around than this, to be honest. Let's be honest. But it's fine. Brad.
I've put Crossroads, a mid-tempo version of this song. Eric's comfortable singing this song. He always sounds great singing this, regardless of the version. The solo from Ron Wood I really enjoyed. Again, it is one of Eric's staple songs. I think, he's well known for this particular song. It's not my favorite version of the song by any means, and I sometimes skip it. I don't understand why they put it on last. I think it's a bad choice to round the album off. I give it a 6 out of 10, and it's sometimes a skip, guys.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
On the scheme of it, folks, from my own opinion, as I said to you guys in the intro, I just, got back into Clapton and taking this music seriously after doing other things for years and years and years, to the point that since 2008, 9, 10, music and this type of music, Brad and Simon, has been pretty much a center point of my life, and for a lot of reasons that I don't want to talk about live, but you guys who are close to me know the reasons why. So, but this album for me came on the heels after reading this book here. It's a biography. If you ever get hold of this biography here, it's out of print. Christopher Sanford's biography of Clapton, which came out in '94. It's one of the biographies that refuses to kiss Clapton's backside. It's a biography which is critical about Clapton as a man and as a person and what he was doing and the things that led up to this self-imposed hibernation period, Simon and Brad, the insecurities that the guy had and how he needed to take a period of time away, because since he would, been 12 years old or 13 years old, music had been the focus of his life. He had no other activities to balance his life on. And I think when I read that, it made sense to me, because it was kind of a reflection of who I was and what I was going through at that time in my life as well. So listening to this album gave me a blueprint of this critical period of Clapton's life that he talks about, Brad and Simon, in his 12-bar blues biography film. It's remarkable. It's a remarkable period. I love it. It's a great document of the British music scene, Simon. You know, to think that Let It Rain was, you know, a Robbie Williams type song, you know, a Take That kind of song, Brad, you know, kind of blows me away. You know, it was like a radio song and people were rocking out to it. I love it. It's a fascinating period. And I want to take a special thank you to everybody in the chat and to my co-hosts for allowing me to sort of go on this Clapton journey so that we can share this pivotal event, which is going to be coming out next week. You know, so you know, we're setting these little blueprints, aren't we, and these stepping stones in Clapton's career, and I think we're doing it really, really well together as a collective. Thank you for letting me pick this album, Simon and Brad. Simon, do you want to conclude, and Brad, do you want to finish up?
Yeah. I'll just do a really quick shout out to everyone in the chat. Andrew, I've got a list here, so I'll quickly go through it. Thank you, Derek Clapton, for joining us. Ellen told my mother, happy Mother's Day again. Well, to all the mums as well, happy Mother's Day. Big special day for everyone. I hope you've been had a wonderful day. Hugh Caldwell, thank you for joining us. We've got Greg Roberts, Tune. Thank you for joining us. John ZD351, Rocky, I call him now. He's Rocky. Alice Holberg, we've got Crappy Luxury, Brooks Reed, Arvin Gaunt, KXM Rock, Tim Thomas, and Kubrick Lover. That's who I've got here. And if I've missed you, I apologize, but thank you guys for joining us. It's been really wonderful today, as always.
Fantastic. You want to do a conclusion, Brad, on the album, Simon?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go on, Brad. Go on. I'll go after you.
Oh, look, at the album, like I said at the start, I just think it was a very important time frame for Clapton to get him back on stage and actually, you know, reaffirm his purpose in life, which is to get him back on stage, you know, get him back performing and try and get him back because he was in a bit of a mess, you know, leading up to this. And I think it was a very important album. They did a great job on it to get him back up. Obviously, from there, we got the Clapton we know now, and it's a very important time frame. Simon.
Absolutely. I think that, you know, I think I'd take my hat off to Pete Townsend for organising it and getting Eric out of, you know, the malaise that he was in and bringing him back and starting him off on, you know, again, being a musician, getting out there, you know, playing some gigs and, you know, doing some recording, you know, and, you know, off he goes to Miami and records, you know, 461 Ocean Boulevard. And I think, you know, that I'm going to take my hat off to Pete Townsend for you know, for doing that, for organising it and being a good mate and, you know, persuading Eric that being a musician's not such a bad idea, really. You know, sitting around a home, you know, in a sort of warm haze of heroin addiction, probably not such a great idea in the long term. So I think that you know, and this album is the first step on that road back to, you know, going out and playing and recording and, you know, getting on with his musical life. So you know, I think it's a really good marker for that. I think it has some, you know, interesting stuff. I think you know, all the other musicians support Eric really well on this. You know, I know it's a bit short on practice and a bit short, you know, he's a bit short on not having played for a couple of years, and I think that's, but great album. I really enjoyed it. I've got it. I bought it. So it's on its way to me. So I should be playing it in my car. I zoom around on CD. And yeah, I'm pleased to have gone back and, you know, reinvestigated this and, you know, and got away from just the 6 tracks and got into the 14, or indeed some of the versions I've listened to have had 16 tracks on them. So, you know, the ones that were left off. Nobody Knows When You're Down and Out and something else. What was the other one? There we are. Why has love got to be so sad? Which are also good versions, by the way. If you want to check those out, some good versions of that. So yeah, good album, and I'm glad, Andrew, that you brought it up, because it isn't something that I've listened to for a long time since it came out, really. And as I say, it's not very well regarded.
Yeah, my pleasure, cool. And thank you guys for allowing me to do that. I just want to echo what the rock professor said. It had to start somewhere, and it gave Clapton the confidence to go into therapy. And then 12 months later, after this gig, he was in Miami recording a masterpiece that we've ranked on this album, folks. On this channel. So go and check that out. I'll include that link if you're interested in that. But yeah, you're right. It's got to begin somewhere. Just one little interesting point that I want to share with you guys before we go. It's been 2 hours, I know. But I picked it up on my research this morning when I was doing a little bit of reading. I didn't realise this, but apparently Townsend had heard rumours. They were really, really concerned that Clapton was going to sell guitars to fund his habit. That was one of the stories that was going around. Anyway, they went and had a conversation with Clapton, and Clapton sort of looked at them and said, I'd never do that. I'd never sell any of my guitars, because the guitars are really important to me. If I'm going to sell anything, I'll sell my cars, to fund his extra curricular activities. And one other point too that I want to share with you guys, if you give me one more second, when Paddy moved in after this event, after this period in his life, because Clapton never opened his mail, nor Alice, she found all these letters that were around the house that had £5,000 checks in them, that were royalty checks that were out of date.
Wow.
So Clapton, couldn't even open up his mail.
God, yeah. Amazing.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Interesting period in his life. And, the fact that we can go back and talk about that on this channel when we rank these albums is part of the enjoyment that I love. It's part of, why I'm doing it with you guys. You guys are awesome. Should we cruise?
Yeah.
I think taking up 2 hours of people's time is quite enough. Have a great week, everyone in the chat. Thanks for your great comments today. As always, really fantastic. Great show.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Take it away, boss.